Welcome along to the Punter, the show that keeps you up to date with all the sports betting markets across the sporting calendar. On today's show, we're going to be talking Olympics football, both men's and women's tournament. We'll be talking tennis. We'll also be delving into the final major of the season when it comes to golf, the USPGA Championship, and taking a look at the feature race tomorrow at Glorious Goodwood. I'm pleased to say that Jason Barrisford has joined me in the studio for today's show. Jason, how are you doing? Have you been enjoying the Olympics? Because over the last couple of days, suddenly Team GB have come to the fore. They've come to the party.
They have, but it depends if you're GB-centric, really, doesn't it? I mean, let's face it, we're just after the money, aren't we? We don't care who we back. We've got absolutely no morals in that regard whatsoever. And going into the Olympics, I marked out two bets. One at odds on, but it was how it was the price. It was 11-8 on South Korean women to win the archery. Numbers 1, 2 and 3 in the world, 11-8 on that one. And I've also got the Australian hockey team, who were overpriced because basically they were in the same group as GB and third, fourth, fifth seats. Only Germany kept apart, and because of that, they were allowed to go off at 11-10. Ludicrous price. Beat South Africa 6-0. They'll go on and win.
So you're not a patriotic punter then, obviously?
No, quite the opposite, in fact. And particularly with specials, if you look at a lot of the specials that are out there, they'll often have a match bet. They've done it quite often in the swimming. There'll be a GB swimmer who's drawn in lane 7, for instance, and they'll match them up with another swimmer who's not going to place. Often they'll make it 6-5 on each of two. The rule of thumb, if you go against the Team GB participant, you're on a good thing. Let's
talk football and the men's tournament when it comes to the Olympic Games. Now, I guess we've got to be impressed by Team GB here, surely, because we know that Stuart Pearce, he hasn't been able to pick what everyone would consider his strongest squad. 1 or 2 dropped out. It's an under-23 tournament. We'd like to have seen the likes of Jack Wilshere obviously injured. We'd like to have seen the likes of Gareth Bale obviously injured. Well, he is now anyway. But he hasn't had the best of squads, but you can't really argue what they've done so far. I think they've done OK, certainly to get through to the knockout stages in what appeared to be a tough group.
How to make friends and influence people. Leaving out Beckham, what a big call that was. And then for the one time in his life that Ryan Giggs wants to play at the Millennium Stadium, and he drops him for it. Now, I'm sure that wasn't the plan initially. I'm sure what he wanted to do was rest him in the second game, but it also wasn't the plan to draw with Senegal. But what is encouraging is that we're improving in the 3 games that we've had. Although, one word of caution, we always make a big hoo-ha in this country, don't we? Whenever we go abroad, we've even just had it at the European Championships about how the players have got to adapt. Well, you've got a load of young men coming from the likes of Mexico over here, South Korea even. They're going to improve as well.
Certainly. Let's get the latest prices when it comes to the men's tournament. Butler, how do we bet?
It's nice to have someone on the show finally talk some sense, go against the GB and Jason now. Bring him back any time. I mean, he's talking the most sense we've had on him in weeks. Exactly what I've been saying, Jason, but I've been absolutely doing me money. I've been getting it wrong on all the GB ones so far, and I'm with you. Go against GB in his Olympics in some of these events. Now, especially the gold rush is coming in, and that is the way to make the money. And we'll start off with the football. Absolutely right. Everyone knows the GB are playing well because we see it on BBC One. We see them getting better and better and better. But who's been watching the red button, watching the Senegalese play? Who's been watching the South Koreans play? There's no difference between these sides, in my opinion. I don't think anybody here, between Great Britain and South Korea, I think the divide is like paper thin. There is nothing between the lot. But yet, Great Britain are 7-1. Senegalese, who outplayed them in their opening game, 14-1. Big discrepancies here. But the team at the top, Brazil, 4-7. In my opinion, I think there should be 4-1 on. I think they win this in a canter. It's just a question who gets to play them in the final. Everyone anticipates the Great British. They bit off their game there against the South Koreans, who have been mightily impressive. But Mexico builds some international players, good young team, getting better and better. The Japanese who beat the Spanish, it wasn't a fluke result that. They played exceptionally well. And I think the value here is for a silver medal or even a bronze medal from this section here, Mexico to South Korea. I think the Egyptians are a little bit out of their depth personally, but Great Britain still too short. We know they're getting better. We know they're getting better because we see it just before, you can't turn around without seeing the GB football team. But the purists and the football fans who are taking value of these guys, they've been overpriced all the way through. This section here, Mexico through to South Korea, and that is where the value lies each way. But for me, Brazil should be shorter than the 4-7. They obviously beat Great Britain 2-0 and are definitely the side to beat.
Nigel, can I just say you're looking a lot smarter today?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not going to be offering any more bets. I'm not going to make any more challenge. I'm just going to talk some sense for once in my life. I'm not going to give any stupid bets anymore. That's my Olympic resolution.
Yeah, for those who didn't watch yesterday, the butler had to present the show in a skirt after dissing Team GB in the women's tournament. Instead, they'd get blown out of the water by Brazil. Obviously, that didn't quite happen. We're going to talk women's football shortly. Let's just keep it to the men, though. And we'll talk top tournament goal scorer here. This is an interesting market. Ahead of the Olympics, all the talk was about the Brazilians. They are still towards the top end of the market, the likes of Neymar. But the likes of Danny Sturridge as well has got a couple of goals. And Konate, the Senegalese striker, he leads the way at the moment. It's an interesting market, this one.
It is, and Konate's got the most goals with 4 at the moment, but they've got a potentially tough match against Mexico. But this is where the odds can be skewed. Now, obviously, Neymar's going to have a great chance. As we've heard from Mr. Butler, we expect them to go to the final. He's 9-4 at the moment. Honduras, penalty kick, 7-1 on, 8-1 on, something like that. But we all know football, it is not that easy. A, to get that amount of goals, and B, when you're having a bet as a top goal scorer, for the silly manager, to put it politely, to keep the players on the field. If anyone thinks that Brazil are going to go 2-0 up against Honduras and they're not going to give Neymar a rest, they're absolutely crazy. Back him if you want, but don't back him because you think he's going to get a hat-trick against Honduras.
Squad rotation could play its part. Let's get the latest prices on this. How do the bookmakers quote them after the group stages, Butler? Yeah,
absolute certainty. I mean, absolutely agree again there. Neymar and Leonardo there, 5-2 and 8-1. Hulk, who hasn't been in the goal-scoring positions yet, he's not in the betting here. But this will be a resting side. I think they'll look at Honduras. They know they're going to beat them anyway if they put a reserve side out. And I think team news is vital if you're playing this market. Personally, I think Konate at 9-4 is the bet because at 4. You've seen now when we get to the knockout stages, the goals on the spreads go down very, very short. No one wants to lose. In the group games, there's a lot more goals. In the knockout stages, you're in for you're just under 2.5 becomes big odds on. And I think 4 will give you a share of winning it. I personally do because I don't think, apart from Brazil, I don't think there's going to be many goals in any other of these quarter-final ties. And I believe Konate here at 9-4 is a bet. And you've only got to see what happened in the Euro 2012. You saw 4 goals and 3 goals were being tied. You know, they're all getting tied. I think was it 3 or 4 at the top of the market?
It was 3, wasn't it?
It was dead heat marks there. I think 4 is the marker. I honestly think, you know, two goals to get in a couple of matches where games are going to be very, very tight. I think, because he's not a fashionable player, I think this Konate is a decent bet here at 9-4. If this was Neymar on this market with 4 goals, he'd be 1-3, 1-4, that kind of price. So for that reason alone, and I think the Senegal will go far. And I think that the 9-4 there, if he gets one more, he's got it in the bag. And I agree. I don't think that Brazil are going to win 4 or 5-0, and it's going to be from goal scorers you expect, because I don't think their participation on the pitch will be much longer than perhaps 45 minutes.
We have seen it time and time again when it comes to recent big tournaments that 6 and 7 doesn't win the Golden Boot. It is 3 or 4, and sometimes if you've got big names just underneath the favourite, they are priced wrongly. Obviously, the bookmakers have got to be fearful because they're going to take cash on the likes of Neymar. They're going to take cash on the likes of Damiao as well. But 9-4, Konate is the man in pole position at the moment. You can see the logic, can't you?
You can certainly see the logic because well, you're going to have a run for your money. It's very, very unlikely, as we've already highlighted, that you'll certainly be out after the next stage. And you're right, the days of Fontaine scoring 13 goals in tournaments, they've been blown out of the water. And it's too late now to do this, but just to say, England were a good example in Euro 2012 when you can back top scorer for their country. Now, if you think that a big team's going to underperform, then you can take a chance. Someone like, and I know he scored the first, this is after time, terrible after timing, somebody like Jolyon Lescott, who got the first goal. In some places, he was 80-1 to be top. Now, you're basically going to get a tie unless you get very, very lucky. But if you think a big team's going to underperform, always do check out prices like that.
Interesting thoughts. Let's get some expert opinion, more expert opinion on the action when it comes to the men's Olympic football tournament from Mark Landon of the Racing Post. Mark, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. How's your punting been going so far on the football tournament at London 2012?
Yeah, I mean, it started poorly because I was on the Spain-Brazil final, so that was a real blow for me, really, because obviously Spain going out so early. But the Golden Boot market's looking quite good. I'm on Damiao, and I think there's still more goals. I'm on him at 20-1. I still think there's plenty of goals left in this competition for Brazil. I think they can sort of really get going against Honduras, and then even the semi-final against Great Britain or South Korea shouldn't be that taxing. So, I mean, it's going okay. The women's one's been better for me. I think there tends to be sort of more value. You know, if you can watch a bit of the women's football and speak to people that really follow it, you know, as in anything really, I think there's probably more value in League Two than what there is the Premier League, and I think it's the same, the women's over the men's football. You know, that there's been some, you know, terrific bets. I'm on France and Great Britain, tip both of those in the Racing Post outright at sort of 10-1 and 20-1. So we're in a good position with those two, and I wouldn't be sort of over surprised if one of those two won it.
Mark, just on the men's, how much pressure is on the Brazilian side to win gold? Because it's the only major tournament that they've never won, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely enormous. I mean, there are some people that think that, you know, football shouldn't even be in the Olympics, but in South America it's taken just so seriously, and rightly so. I mean, of course, the Olympics was the World Cup of football before the World Cup actually came in. You know, they were playing the Olympics at the football before World Cup was invented. It's massively important to Brazil to try and win this, not just for historical reasons. There's also the fact that, of course, they haven't got a sort of major competition until the World Cup that they're hosting in 2014. So this is being treated as if it's a World Cup for them. You know, this is the be-all and end-all, you know, for a tour until 2014. I'd say this is even more important than the Confederations Cup for them, and they're playing well. It's difficult to sort of see who can beat them. You know, when you look down the list of teams that they've got to play, I can't see anybody sort of knocking them out before the final. And even then, you know, I think with the elimination of Spain and Uruguay, they're two biggest threats. I mean, it's now or never really for this Brazil team. They couldn't ask for an easier run.
What about Team GB? Mark, have you been impressed or otherwise? I think many felt that they might struggle to get out of the group stages, but they've got to the knockout stages.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they qualified, and they surprised me with some of the football they played against Uruguay as well in the last game, actually. I mean, I'm a big knocker of Stuart Pearce. I'm not a big fan at all of the way he sets his teams up to play usually, but I think actually, you know, Great Britain played pretty well, and I expect them to beat South Korea in the quarter-final now. They shocked me, really, with how well, you know, that they actually played as a team, considering, you know, they've been thrown together. Yeah, and I think they've come such a long way from when we saw them get beat 2-0 by Brazil, when, you know, Brazil declared at half-time with that 2-goal lead. It could have been anything if they would have wanted to sort of really carried on. And from where they come from that to beating Uruguay, and, you know, I felt against Senegal on another day they might have won that game, and then against UAE, didn't play that well, you know, throughout the whole game, but still won a tricky game because UAE caused problems, you know, for all the teams in that section, and maybe we underestimated them at the start. I think they can beat South Korea, actually, in the quarterfinals, Great Britain. It's funny for me to be sort of bigging up a Stuart Pearce team, but I think Joe Allen's been really, really nice in midfield. I think that they've looked decent at the back. The goalkeeper, Butland, looks excellent. And, you know, up front, they've been pretty lively. So, I mean, all in all, I mean, we're normally doom and gloom when it comes to, you know, England at major tournaments, but now we've got Great Britain. I think everybody's starting to get behind them, actually. They're in with a chance of a medal. I don't think it'll be gold, but if they can reach the semi-finals, you know, that the bronze is a possibility.
Just lastly, Mark, what about the women then? Can they maybe strike gold? Because no one really expected them, as we know on this show, to beat Brazil. And Brazil weren't the favourites, admittedly, for the outrights ahead of the tournament. USA were, but they've got momentum now, haven't they?
They have, yeah. I think the whole country's got behind them. I mean, to have, you know, in excess of 70,000 at Wembley was a great crowd. And what I would just say about that result is it needs to be put into context. Brazil had a nightmare preparation. Their coach broke down the day before, and they couldn't train properly. They then also, it's a bit like the badminton as well, you know, where teams, I'm not saying Brazil wanted to lose the game, but in finishing second in the group, they avoided, you know, the tournament favourite USA until the final. So I don't think it is necessarily a bad thing, you know, to have come second in that group. Yes, they've got a trickier quarter-final now. I do expect them to beat world champions Japan, Brazil.
Mark, we're going to have to leave the women there just for a second, but I think it's interesting that you believe that they can go some way towards that gold medal. Mark Land of the Racing Post, many thanks for joining us. That was Mark Landon talking at length about the women. I think many people have certainly got momentum behind the women now because of that win over Brazil. There were certain circumstances, as Mark's just been explaining there, to why Brazil maybe underperformed, but we've got to give the women a bit of a chance, haven't we?
You've got to give them a bit of a chance, yeah, because they've got the winning habit, and I hope it's not too sexist to say the estrogen will be flowing now. They've got the home crowd behind them as well. And there has been, if you like, hints, because the women, the British women, have been performing better at club level recently.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Let's get the latest odds, shall we? Briefly from the bottler, how do we bet for the women's?
Yeah, big movers, England, Great Britain, sorry. Obviously, even 10-1 pre-tournament there, Mark was saying to 5-1. The Americans still favourites at 13-10. As short as even money with some bookmakers. They have got the showdown against the Japanese, the world champions, at 10-1. France, pre-tournament 20-1, went 2-0 up against America. Let that slip to 4-2. Still think the Americans take some beating. Team GB win against the Canadians. Even money to do so. Cracking bet. They face USA in a playoff in the semi-finals, get to the final. But a big movers, Great Britain and France. Big movers in this market, but America is still rock solid at the favourites at 13-10.
That's the Bet Butler. That's the women's and the men's tournament when it comes to the Olympics. Much more Olympic chat to come. We're going to be tackling athletics and indeed tennis. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter. We're talking Olympic Games, and in this section, tennis. We now know the semi-finalists when it comes to the men's tournament, and I guess there's no real surprise. Jason Barrison with me in the studio. Jason, Andy Murray through today, Roger Federer through today, Novak Djokovic and Del Potro as well. Big four, because obviously there's no Rafa Nadal. Andy Murray, first of all, obviously he didn't win Wimbledon, but I'm sure he'd take an Olympic gold, wouldn't he?
He would take it. I don't know quite who's going to give it to him, though, with Djokovic and Federer to play, to be honest. And we've got to remember, at Wimbledon, brilliant as he was, and nothing against Tsonga, Nadal got beaten early in that tournament, so he got to the final where he was seeded to get to the semis, which he's been doing more often than not in tournaments. He has had a couple of finals, admittedly, but US Open and Australian would be his better surfaces, despite the home support he gets on grass. I can't see him beating Djokovic, to be honest. This
is the problem, isn't it? Djokovic in the semi-final. Let's get the latest prices when it comes to the men's outrights. Butler, how do we price this one? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, my thoughts all along was that maybe we can get a couple of these favourites beat, because you look at the roll of honour of Olympic gold medalists in this competition. You've got some real unknown names: Miroslav Mashir, Mark Rosset, Nicholas Massou, names that people don't link with Olympic gold, with big major Grand Slams. The thing is, here now we're back to normal service. I mean, we've got Federer as the favourite at 5-4. Very sort of similar price to what he was at the start. That's the problem when you back Federer. You know, if he gets to the final and you've got Djokovic, Murray into the latter stages, his price isn't going to really deviate much. Del Potro 25-1. That just looks big to me. I know he's in the semi-finals. He is a man who's won the Grand Slam. He's played by injury last season. You know, he's done something that Andy Murray hasn't done and win a major. I just think that looks very big price. I think I've got to be on Del Potro for me personally out of the four. I think the thing is here, Djokovic will be so up for this game. He wants to be the first Serbian to win that Olympic gold medal, and I mean, the pride in his nation is so strong. And when we saw Federer win the Olympics, the doubles, you could see how emotional he was when he won it. So, you know, people are saying that you might catch these on an off day because they may not be up for it because they've got the US Opens to come. I think it means a lot for all these people. And despite home support, I think Murray at 7-2 is in with a real tough challenge. We know he's beaten these guys in Master Series events at the best of three. But I just think a nation of Federer and Djokovic playing, and this big price on Del Potro, I just think Murray's too short at 7-2. To win Olympic gold, he has to beat Djokovic and probably Federer. And would you be doing that 7-2? I certainly wouldn't.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at the names there, and Nigel's been reading off previous winners, but you get the feeling that the top tennis players look at the Olympics maybe slightly differently to when tennis was first introduced to the Olympics, or at least came back into the Olympics. And Federer wants to win, as Nigel says. Djokovic is keen to win this one. He didn't manage to win Wimbledon, so he really desperately wants to win on grass in London, doesn't he, this week?
Yeah, and it's remember, it's relatively new in Olympic terms. So first of all, there was even negative publicity. We don't know how the players felt. Of course, they came out and did the PR thing. And you've also got to look at, they can't represent their countries apart from Davis Cup. And at least two of them play for countries, and Murray sadly being one of them, that are never going to win a Davis Cup, certainly not in the foreseeable future. Del Potro, I totally understand what they're saying because of the odds. But I still remember at Wimbledon, he went out like a light against Ferrer, and I couldn't have him after that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the 25-1 shot, when you look at the roll call of honour, you think, well, he's into the semi-finals. He could be worth a value punt. What about Roger Federer? He's just won Wimbledon. Is he bang up for this one or not? What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. The thing about Federer is that he has a love affair with Wimbledon. He really, really does. They adore him. He adores them. He comes out wearing his little white jacket, doesn't? I mean, I know he can't do that here, but generally that's what he does. And he does raise his game. And he's been stung. Remember, he's usually back to being world #1 now, but for a while he was stung there. And I'm going to name drop here. I was chatting to Simon Reed, and he said it's a very, very odd thing with Federer. Him and Nadal, he fully respects. Now, he does respect Murray and Djokovic, but not in the same way. And so he'll be even more up against those two players, and Del Potro as well. I don't know how he feels about him, as his rivals.
Let's get the latest prices on that first semi between Murray and Djokovic. But there is the pressure off Murray a little bit here, because usually the whole nation is behind him. And I'm not saying they're not this time around, but with so many Olympians in action and so many opportunities for Great British gold, maybe he's got a little bit under the radar. Do you see it that way? How do you see this semi?
Yes, certainly. I think the pressure is not as much as it would be intense as in a Wimbledon semi-final, but I think this final here is Murray has got to get off to a good start, as we all know, against the games against Federer. He got off to a good start, couldn't get it through because of the rain delay. I think here with Djokovic, I think the problem is you know what you can expect with him. He's probably not the most naturally gifted tennis player. That's why Federer doesn't put him in the same league as Nadal. But what he is he's a worker, and you know you're going to be in for a long race, tough thing, and fitness comes to its fore here. And I think that's where Murray could struggle. I don't think in long games, I think his body isn't as great in the gruelling rallies as the Djokovic and the Nadals. So I think Murray has to win this game in straight sets. If he goes into a third set, there's only one winner, it's Djokovic, because Djokovic's got the biggest heart in tennis, he's got the biggest kahunas in tennis, and he's also definitely got the biggest legs running around. So I think Murray's best chance is to get him out in straight sets. Now, Djokovic is an 8-15 favourite. Would I be backing Djokovic at 8-15? Probably not. I think I would probably tell punters to look at maybe 2 sets to 1, I think. I think Djokovic maybe a long game, 2 sets to 1. Murray may take the second set. I look at the set betting more as a bit of an angle rather than lumping on the 8-15. I think he will prevail, but there'll be certain stages at the time. Because he's not a big server, Djokovic, you've always got chances to break him. And Murray, we know his game is so good on the return of serve. So would I back Murray at 11-8? I just don't think he has mentally or physically to compete with Djokovic at this high level. In the second round, third round, yes. But for my advice, take Djokovic, but take Djokovic to win 2 sets to 1.
Just briefly, Jason, how do you see that semi?
I see Djokovic winning 2-0, to be honest. Although it's a very good point that made about the serve there, because that's something that really has proved since he's been with Ivan Lendl. First set today against Almagro, he got 9 aces.
Let's move it on to the women's. We're going to focus on the feature semi-final. Serena Williams, of course, the Wimbledon champion. She takes on the girl that she beat in the semi-final, Victoria Azarenka. So Azarenka will be out for revenge, but you always feel that if Serena is up for it, she's going to win. How do you see this one?
Yeah, totally. You just encapsulated it right there. I mean, the thing with Azarenka, that she's still got these question marks about her temperament in big games, and not only that so much, but against certain players. And Serena Williams at Wimbledon would most certainly be one of those. And Serena Williams, brilliant as she was at Wimbledon, she does know there's not that many big tournaments left in her, probably left, you know, maybe a couple of years, maybe only one if the rumours are right as well. So she's going to be going hell for leather.
Let's get to the bet butler. Let's get the prices for this feature semi. Serena Williams versus Victoria Azarenka.
Azarenka was absolutely dominant at the start of the year. Won the Australian Open, went on this massive unbeaten run, come back a little bit here, and obviously Serena Williams is the form horse. The power, the one on the grass courts who got the serve, who can win it, serving bigger than the men, some men. 2-5 Serena Williams, that will be very heavily backed. I think 8-1 in head-to-heads, winning mentality, fresh at the back of a Wimbledon Championship. Azarenka 7-4. I watched her game today against Kerber. It was probably the most high standard tennis I've seen for a long time. Both of them were gruelling rallies, great shots. But I think this is a mental block when you have Serena Williams facing you on the other end of the court. Personally, again, I don't think this is going to be a straight set victory. I think if you look at the total games, fixed odds around about more than 22.5, or maybe even back Serena Williams to win 2-1, I think you could decently get a good price on that. Again, it comes down to bottle. 60% of tennis is about mental strength, in my opinion, and I think Serena Williams has it in abundance over Azarenka at the big points, and that's why Serena Williams will go through, and I can see the 2-5 being heavily backed tomorrow.
Yeah, Serena Williams, short price favourite, 2-5. She's won the last 6 head-to-heads against Azarenka. It should be an easy victory, you would have thought. So that's all we've got time for now. But when we come back, we're delving into the athletics, which, of course, starts tomorrow at London 2012. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Punter as we delve into Olympics athletics betting next. And who else to start with but Usain Bolt. The 100 metres, of course, gets underway this weekend at London 2012. A little bit of negativity, Jason, surrounding Usain Bolt over the course of the last 6 months because he's been beaten a couple of times. And I don't know what price he was around Christmas time, probably something like 3's on. He's around about 8 to 11 now to win the 100 metres. How do you see Usain Bolt form and fitness-wise going into the Olympics?
I think his fitness will be fine, but only one person has ever retained the 100-metre crown, and that was Cole Lewis, and that was after Ben Johnson, the Ben Johnson affair. So it's very, very hard to do. And if you looked at it like a horse race, he's basically got a runner from the same stable, the same country, with him in Blake, who's running better at the moment, younger man, hungrier as well. And there's no discernible reason, I don't see, why Bolt should be such a favourite he is over Blake, who even Bolt calls the beast. I mean, he loves this guy. They're great pals. I mean, they'll be up against each other. But Blake, I think, is a brilliant bet.
Let's get to the butler with this one, because I know, Nigel, you've got a good theory, and I buy into this theory when it comes to this Bolt-Blake duel. How do we see the betting first up?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jason on everything so far until this point. I mean, it always comes to a point where you've got to have a bit of disagreement in betting, and here it is. I think Blake is a guy who's obviously got the potential. He's obviously hungry. He's obviously young. He wants to win it. But the form horse is Bolt. 3-1 on, like we said 2 or 3 months ago. Now into 4-5. The reason why he's into 4-5 is because Blake has been beating him twice over in Jamaica. But Blake has run 10 of his races all in the Caribbean. He's come once over to the European circuit. He didn't really clock a good time in Luzerne. Bolt has come over to Europe all the time. All his form is in the Caribbean, which I don't think you can look at in major championships. He's been to one major championship where he won it because Bolt full started. But I just think the form of the Blake is misleading. I think it's form that doesn't really sort of come into he hasn't really competed in any other races with the Americans. He hasn't come to any European meets bar one. And he ran 1986, but it was pretty wind assisted. I know he beat Bolt over it. I just think Bolt's first being to every single European meeting. He's consistent. He knows the hype. He knows the pressure. He deals with it everywhere he goes. He's used to it. And I just think that at 4-5, I think he's an absolute belting bet. I think this fitness query has come along. Everyone's said he's up fit. I think he's got to a price now where the guy represents huge, huge value. You would never, ever, ever have thought you would ever see this price. And I think what will happen now on the build-up to the championship, I think the serious money will come for Bolt, and I think Blake will start off bigger. So if you do fancy Blake, I think he could be a 15-8, 2-1 shot, because there's already money coming for Tyson Gay at 14-1. He was tipped up on a tipping line, I believe, a couple of days ago. There was huge money coming in, and especially for him to win a medal. But I think Bolt's just got too big. I think people have believed the hype that he's not fit. It's a tough act to do it, but this man is absolute class. And barring one result that we've seen, I think that we're looking into one race where he's been dominant throughout the European circuit up until that point.
He's got a point, hasn't he, the butler? Because when it comes to the big events, Usain Bolt, he's so relaxed. He's done it all before. He's run in Europe. When it comes to his main rival here, maybe there is just that question mark when it comes to course form.
Well, you could possibly argue that, but I think he's someone who's rise to the occasion. Part of the reason he's not been over to Europe so much, and this tells you a lot about the man, now we'll have a little bit of angst while your chap's been off filming adverts. He's been at home playing cricket. He plays 2020 cricket for his local side still, and that's something that's very dear to heart. He's laid back. He really is so laid back, and he doesn't want his day job of being one of the fastest men in the world to totally upset his life.
Butler, when it comes to the heats that we'll see over the course of this weekend, I mean, how much of the price is going to change, you think, if they both run to form? And we know when it comes to the heats that we're not going to see the blistering times. They're going to ease up. They're going to win their heats easily. So can you envisage any price changes when they go through those first round heats this week?
Well, I personally don't think you're going to see many changes. I think you see the changes in like the 1,500 metres and the 5,000 metres, those kind of things. I think we know what we expect here. But what I think will happen, I think you'll certainly see the big hitters coming out now. And I'm talking all these prices you've seen, 15-8. These are people backing 50 quids, 100 quids on Blake. People just coming to a price now at 4-5. I absolutely believe that this is where the guys will be tempting you for your big money, your $5 grand, your $2.5 grand. That will come. I don't think anybody will put that kind of money on Blake because they know that Usain Bolt is the man at the top. I think the big hitters will come out for Blake, and the smaller punters will come for. Sorry, the big hitters will come out for Bolt, and the smaller punters will come out for Blake. And that's where I see the price movements being, not purely what you see on the 100 metres heats, because we know they're going to cruise through the heats. We know what they're going to see. I think that more to other events. But I think purely for money, the big hitters will actually think, you know what, Bolt has got too big here, and we're going to put the money down on the guy who's proven, apart from the full start, that everyone keeps going on about.
Let's up the distance to 200 metres. I mean, the prices are roughly the same here. Many, Jason, would suggest that the 200 metre is more Bolt's playing field and he's less likely to have a slippage. You see it that way?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? People forget 4 years ago, before he started doing so well in the 100 metres, or in fact a little bit prior to that, the Worlds, people just thought he'd be a 200-metre runner who could do okay at the 100 metres, but because of his size would never be able to. Here, I'd flip, personally, and I would go for Bolt in the 200 metres. I still think that long stride will see him home at this stage of each of their careers.
When it comes to the 200 metres, Bolt is just a little bit shorter, I think, Butler, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much surprising, but if someone put a gun to me and said which one would I take Usain Bolt with, I'd take him on the 200 metres and over the 100 metres, and that's how confident I am over the 100 metres. Again, Blake's form is all to do with the Caribbean form. We know that. Jason explained why that was. But Bolt is the guy who's proven on this distance. You haven't got the full start worry here, which is on his mind all the time in the 100 metres. So that makes him probably, in my opinion, a lot shorter than that. I mean, you've obviously got the full start worry in the 100 metres. I just think the double now represents huge value at 6 to 4, 13 to 8. I really, really do. Some bookies are trying to push it a little special bet out there. And the thing is, I just can't see him getting beat, it's particularly in this one. And I think the 100 metres is there for the taking as well. I think the race for the silver medals and the bronze medal here, Christian Lemaire, the form horse, the French guy, the form horse over here on the European circuit, he could make a play for a bronze, but really it's between the front two. And I think that Bolt should be a lot shorter for this. I think he should be near a 2 on, 2 to 5, because there is no real chance of a full start in this one.
Butler, when it comes to the money that the bookmakers are going to take on the Olympics as a whole and the athletics in particular, this is the race where they're going to take the most cash. Is that right?
Without a doubt. I mean, obviously we'll see money from Mo Farah in the bronze of the Brits and Jessica Ennis, but this will be where the big money come. I mean, and also I think here is where, you know, I work for a company where we take big £5,000, £10,000 bets, big money bets. That's what we do, and we only sort of look after the tie individual. But if you go and want to get 2 grand, 3 grand with a bookmaker on someone to win the 10,000 metres, you're not going to get it. Even if it's Mo Farah, I think bookmakers will be reluctant to take that. But here, they'll take you on. So this is why I think the big guys will come out in force, because it's their only event that they can really, really have a hefty wager on. And that's why I think you'll see figures. I don't think you'll see volume of loads and loads of people betting it, but you will see massive bets being placed on this, because I think bookies are so confident in taking. So how wrong can they be on the 100 metres, but they can be drastically wrong on the 10,000 metres.
Usain Bolt, obviously, is favourite for both. I mean, the double's going to be absolutely massive for punters, isn't it? If you're a Usain Bolt fan, like Nigel is, you're going to want him to win the 100, you're going to want him to 200, and indeed the 4x1. I mean, when it comes to the 4x1 replay, I mean, surely we can't see anything other than Jamaica.
No. You know, I mean, obviously they've got to get the thing round, which the baton, the thing. Sorry if I'm getting too technical for everybody. Just very quickly to go back to that double. I don't think you can have the treble. I'm pretty sure you can, but you wouldn't have it anyway. On the double, what you can do, of course, is that once one of them, whichever one you fancy has won one, because of then the weight of the doubles going on, of the special bet,
yeah, the prices might change.
The other price will get bigger, and you can actually have a bet for nothing then by backing the other player, or at least covering the other guy, so covering yourself a bit. But yeah, but the relay, I think you'll probably, if you want an interest in it, you'll be more looking at, not even betting without actually with USA in there, you'll be looking at place for going for a medal or something like that to make the final.
They've just got to get it round, haven't they? Butler, the Jamaicans say there must be short price favourites for the relay.
Yeah, I mean, they're big odds on. I mean, not as big odds as you would expect, though. I mean, 2 to 5, 100 to 30. There has been money around for the Americans in the 100 metres, but there's also been money around for the 100-metre relay. I think this 2 to 5 is an absolute cracking bet. I mean, I personally don't like betting odds on unless I really think, you know, it's a first-round snooker match or something like that in a tournament I've got the heads up on. But here, I just think 2 to 5 is too short. I mean, too big. When I didn't see this caption, I was expecting 1 to 5, 1 to 6. I also think in the 100 metres, I saw a special that some firms gone 7 to 2. Jamaica get a 1, 2, 3, and that with Asa for power running a place. I think that's value as well. So, I mean, I think Jamaica 2 to 5, barring any accidents again in the baton round, they will win this, and I think they will break world record. And I think it's just ridiculously big. I just really do. And I think if you see Blake and Bolt so dominant as we expect them to do, then this price will surely come into 1 to 4, 1 to 5 come start the relay final.
I'm going to say the problem is not the speed of the men, because we know they're all very, very quick. They're the favourites to win the 100 metres, 200 metres and so on. It's that cohesiveness when it comes to the changeover and the baton, because we've seen in the past big favourites for Olympic titles unfortunately quite literally throw it away.
And quite often in the semi-final, when it's guys who aren't going to be in the final.
Yeah, because the teams can change.
Yeah, but I don't think that... The thing is with Jamaica and America in this case, they have got so much in hand, I'm sure, and I've never... I mean, look at me, I'm not going to be an athlete or an athletics coach. I would be saying to those guys, I don't care if you stop, phone up Parcel Force and get them to deliver it, because you've got so much in hand that you're going to qualify whatever.
No doubt about that. And just a brief word before we leave this section on Adam Jamili, who is the British representative. We're all hoping that he's going to do well, but I mean, it's going to be a massive ask, isn't it, for a great British athlete even to get to the final, you would have thought.
It's going to be a huge ask for him, but I mean, basically we're looking 4 years down the line with him, aren't we? But it's going to be a great experience.
No doubt about that. And just finally on the sprinters, Butler, we talked about Britain and obviously the Jamaicans doing so well. When it comes to the crowd, do you think they'll get behind Bolt, because he's not just a Jamaican, he's more of a world sprinter? I mean, the crowd are going to want him to win it, aren't they? They're going to want Usain Bolt to clock the world record. He's got so much goodwill towards him, and could that be a factor as well in his favour?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I think he's probably the man that everyone wants to see. As him, you ask 100 people on the street, who's the person you remember from the Olympic Games? A few of them might say Bradley Wiggins now, but before yesterday, everyone would be saying Usain Bolt. He will be very popular in the crowd, and that's why I think he's a bet, because I think he knows how to deal with that pressure and expectation. And I think he will win it. I think he'll win it comfortably, and I think potentially will set a world record. I think he's really got it in it. He's been very quiet. All these rumours about his fitness, I think he'll go on that track and he'll show everyone he means business, and he will be the crowd favourite without a doubt. Yeah,
let's hope so. Let's hope we see that world record. And obviously for Bolt backers, let's hope that he wins. If you like Jason, you back Blake, then maybe it's something else. That's all we've got time for when it comes to the athletics. We're going to be delving into Glorious Goodwood and talking golf shortly. Don't go away. Welcome back to the final part of today's Punter, where once again we talk athletics, golf and indeed horse racing, all to come. We're going to kick off with Jessica Ennis, the poster girl of London 2012, Jason, and the short price favourite to win the heptathlon. Short, but not that short, to be honest. Even money is freely available now, pretty much. She's not world champion. This is the thing, isn't it? Chernova's the world champion who won over in South Korea. She is the poster girl, you're quite right about that. But she's been very, very keen to tell us that she's an athlete, first and foremost. Even so much that when she wasn't going to go in the opening ceremony, she had a press conference to tell us. Now, I like Jessica Ennis, but come on, I just hope that she hasn't been affected by being the glamour girl. Yeah, I mean, she's not the world champion, as you mentioned, but I think everyone respects the fact that she is probably the best in the world when it comes to what she's done over the last couple of years. Well, yes and no. Chernova's really, really improving. I mean, the thing about Jessica Ennis is that she's predominantly speed-based. I mean, obviously she's struggles with her strength. Yeah, whereas Chernova is the other way around. Discus, javelin. What she has got, actually, is she's better at 800 metres, which is obviously the last event. So should it come down to that and it's very close, she might have a little bit in hand. But I don't think that she's improving. When you take the two of them, and it basically is the two of them, I think Chernova's just improving that little bit faster and may come out on top. You mentioned it's the two of them. Let's get the prices on this one. The Bet Butler can give us the market for the heptathlon. Yeah, I mean, I've got a massive viw on Team GB in the track and field. I don't think we'll get a gold medal. I really, really strongly believe we won't get one gold medal. I think we're disappointed in every single event. I think Di Green will get beat by the favourite there. I think Java Coulson will beat him. And I think here we get turned over. And I think the whole thing comes down to this event. We have not seen one bet on Jessica Ennis from us in the build-up. Everybody has been back in Chernova. She was as big
as about, I think she was as big as 7-2. I mean, that was early prices we took money on. She was into 5-2. That kept on coming. Jessica Ennis is getting bigger and bigger and bigger as they build up sums. I think she suddenly believes the hype that she can win this. And if you look at her history in big competitions, she hasn't really been that successful in winning them. She's medalled, she's come second, but this is a world champion. How many events do you get where the world champion is 2-1 second favourite? Very few with archery in this world championship. And she's getting better and better and better. Jessica, we started off the show by saying go against GB athletes in races and look at match bets. This certainly here is a match bet in all intents and purposes, and the value is on Chernover at 2-1. I don't fancy Jessica Ennis at all. We're getting really carried away after Wiggins. We're getting carried away on everything. But every gold medal we've won today, apart from the shooting, we've won on events where we had to sit on our backsides. And I can't see Jessica Ennis winning it at 4-5. I think she's a fantastic lay. I think she suddenly believes the hype. I think everyone thinks she's got to do it. Just turn up and she'll win it. But I think she's giving for a real tough test. I think it's a genuine match. And if you can get 2-1 about heads or tails in a coin cost, you're going to make money and get on Chernover at 2-1. She is definitely the value in this competition.
Is she just trying to play down the pressure and the expectation a little by saying don't expect too much? You know, we all expect her to win. Is she just trying to temper the enthusiasm? Because when the heptathlon starts tomorrow, everybody inside the Olympic Stadium, it's day one, of course, in the Olympic Stadium, everyone's going to be rooting for Jess Ennis. Is she just trying to say, look, hold on, it's not as simple as you think, it's not as simple as those prices suggest?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I disagree with Butler. I fancy Jess Ennis. I
knew that was coming.
Not from a betting perspective, that's all. She doesn't have to make the adverts. She doesn't have to have a roll call every time she's got something to say. Her most recent one's coming out saying, money means nothing to me. You know, it's almost like J-Lo, my love don't cost a thing. I mean, come on, just keep quiet and go away and train if that's what you want to do. Win the gold medal, and then you've got 4 years to make all the money. It's just the way. I cannot believe that she's not been affected in any way by all the shenanigans that have gone on beforehand.
Just generally on the athletics, because we're speaking to the butler, he reckons no gold medals whatsoever. I mean, talking about Di Green and, I mean, Philip Sadua, who knows what's going on with our triple jumper. Do you see us striking out when it comes to gold?
No, because I think Mo Farah will win. Certainly 1 gold, perhaps not 2. So, and then who knows? It's a little more threadbare. I know what you're saying, because it's a little more threadbare than you think. Actually, can I just give one tip? Because this is inside info given to me from the man at Bet365, who is a friend of mine, and he was passing it on, but it's from a very reliable source.
Okay,
He said the bet of the track and field, the whole bet is Pish Kalnikova, who's second favourite.
Hang on a minute, who?
Yeah, okay,
Who?
I'm not taking the pish. Who's second favourite? She's Russian second favourite for the women's discus. And
Okay.
about 2-1. It's an absolutely fantastic bet.
OK, that's athletics for now. Let's move on away from the athletics. We're going to talk golf because we've got the WGC Bridgestone Invitational this week. But, of course, next week, it's the USPGA Championship. It is the final major of the season. Tiger Woods has had chances when it comes to the majors this campaign. He hasn't managed to win one. He's won an awful lot on the PGA Tour, though. He's won 3 times. Are we saying that Tiger's back, or would you prefer to lay Tiger if you're a bookmaker when it comes to the final major of the season?
Well, the thing is, it makes no difference in a way what we think, because bookmakers are reacting that he's back. All of a sudden, I mean, not quite what it was, but he's come in and he's making the market for other players. And until he starts winning the big ones again, you've got to say there's got to be value elsewhere. Although, you know, let's be candid, you're a golf expert, so you should be telling me here. But that's what Tiger's doing. He's making the market.
A little bit. I mean, that's certainly what's happened with the WGC this week. And incidentally, if he wins this week, and he's won at Firestone, I think 7 times, he will go back to world #1 status. He is at the top of the market for the WGC. But what about the top of the market when it comes to the USPGA Championship next week? Butler, how do we bet for the last major of the season?
Yeah, Tiger Woods is the favourite for this. Obviously, will he get shorter? Will he get bigger? That's the question. I mean, it depends on what he does this week. But he's 15-2. You know, I expect him to probably be a little bit shorter. The USPGA Championship is always won by Americans. It's always won by people who you don't really fancy. It's always won by big outsiders. You look at the history of this competition. I mean, Keegan Bradley, I think, won it last year. You've got some big players who won the championship. Tiger Woods is 15-2. Lee Westwood, I just think he's never going to win a major. I think he has one great round of 67 followed by a 76. He's far too inconsistent, to win a major championship to me, and I think he could be the next Colin Montgomery. I just think he doesn't have the game. I think he's got the game, hasn't got the temperament to win a major. Luke Donald, 18-1, put a final last round in the Open, brilliant last round, a little bit too left to desire, but I think you've got to concentrate here on the Americans, and there's some names on this leaderboard who aren't on there. I think Dustin Johnson just about making it 30-1. He's been very, very good in the American Tour, very consistent. I think he was backed as well in the Open. I think Matt Kuchar, one of the best putters on tour, great course form in America, absolutely loves it. He loves by the galleries. They love him there. He's around a 40-1 shot. I think you've got to look at Zach Johnson. He was 80-1 for the Open, won the tournament before that, banging form. He's a little bit of a short game, and it's a long course here. The USPGA got to be long hitter. So I'm looking at Matt Kuchar. I'm looking at Dustin Johnson, Zach Johnson, and even Bubba Watson. I think you've got to look at home talent. 40-1. I think the value now in these markets is between Americans between around about 33-1 and 50-1 each way. The bookmakers offer silly each way prices. Call the odds the first 6, first 7. Someone's going to the Open. You can get decent value here. Take on Tiger with that middle section American market. Pick about 3 or 4, and I'm sure you'd have one for the running.
Nigel, are you surprised to see Adam Scott in the top end of the market there, given how he choked in the Open Championship? And if you're a bookmaker, you'd want to lay him in the next major, because surely he can't win one.
Well, you've got to see it's a massive factor how he bounces back. But you would have said that about Rory McIlroy, wouldn't you, when he failed in the US Masters and he'd come back and won the US Open. I think the thing is this week is huge for Adam Scott. I mean, he's playing in the tournament now, tees off not too far from now. I think how he bounces back this week is where you want to see him going. The trouble is, I just don't think you can handle the broom handle putter. I always had question marks about that going into tight situations. You know, for a putt for a playoff, I just think it doesn't look confident for me as a backer. I don't like putting my money on people doing that. I mean, Bernard Langer won a few with that style, but he's not only one I can remember for a long, long year. But I just think it's a big, big week for Adam Scott this week. And it was surprising yesterday. Some of the bookmakers were saying that he was the worst result this week. Punters were putting their cash on him. He certainly would not ride any of my money ever again after the way he fell apart. But he is a talent. He is a talent.
Yeah, certainly interesting the way that he finished there with that bogey finish to throw the Open away. Let's wrap it up with racing. Glorious Goodwood, of course, is on this week, and we're going to wrap it up with the Betfred Mile, which is one of the feature races tomorrow, Jason, at the Sussex venue.
Yeah, it is. And Johnny Murto won the big race today, didn't he? The Goodwood Cup on Sadler's Rock. And I think he's got a really good chance tomorrow. George Baker, the trainer, not the jockey, though he's very good, is very, very good at placing his horses, also laying them out for handicaps. But because he's not, how can I put this, perhaps one of the most fashionable of trainers, they often go under the radar. And they've got Belgian Bill, who conditions really are going to suit tomorrow. He's done absolutely zip so far this season. I can't help but think he's been laid out for this.
Let's see how that one prices. Let's see the top end of the market, the Butler. How do we price the Betfred Mile?
It's probably one of the most competitive handicaps this year. It's around about 10-1 the field. Belgian Bill's about 16-1, the best you can get there. Fulbright 10-1 for Mark Johnson. I don't think his form is really great for this. I think he's a favourite. I don't think he's a 10-1 shot. I'd want to take some further on here. I think excellent guess. All his forms on heavy ground. The ground there will be good to soft. I think Captain Bertie's got a chance, but Field of Dream for me, I think that's a decent bet here. 12-1, trained by Jamie Osborne of jump jockey fame and ridden by Richard Hughes. And at Goodwood, he's the man you want on board. He knows how to ride the tracks. Had winners this week, so I'm going for Field of Dream. I wouldn't rule off Belgian Bill. 16-1 shot, very popular in handicaps and has got a winning pedigree. But take on the front two, Field of Dream and Belgian Bill for us.
Butler, just very briefly on this one, has it been a bookmaker's week at Glorious Goodwood so far?
It's been a bit of a mixed result. There hasn't been hardly any money, mate. That's the trouble. I mean, the problem is everyone's watching the Olympics. We've got the start of the football season. The weather hasn't been great, hasn't been glorious at all. And it's sort of just gone under the radar, and that's what you're seeing in betting. I mean, and remember, the figures of horse racing at major meetings is going down and down and down. And with the Olympic Games going on, I think people are concentrating more on what's going on there and not putting their money on a Goodwood.
Just remind us your best bet for that one tomorrow, Jason?
Belgian Bill.
Belgian Bill then for Jason. Should be a fantastic day at Glorious Goodwood. It's certainly been an interesting week down there on the Sussex coast. Of course, we had Frankel winning earlier this week, but one or two short price favourites certainly have been beaten. Let's hope that the punters can get back on track tomorrow. Let's hope that the punters can get back on track with the athletics as well when it comes to the Olympics. We kick off, of course, the Olympic Stadium this weekend. Well, that's all we've got time for on this edition of The Punter. Many thanks to the Bet Butler, Nigel Seeley, and to my studio guest, Jason Beresford. From all of us here, it's goodbye, and we'll see you next time.